we are moving really fast to a catastrophe, to a huge problem in which we will not have enough material.
How you help Ukraine to rebuild itself?
We as a company can help Ukraine to actually discover more minerals. Our solution is to bring more data and more knowledge and more AI towards actually finding new deposits and helping humanity in a green transition.
Hopefully you will grow into a huge fish and probably will give birth to even more fishes.
We maybe become the Australia of Europe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Seeds of Bravery podcast with a new episode. And today I want to talk with a great entrepreneur who is working on transformation of mineral exploration with the power of AI, satellite sensing, and geophysics. So welcome, Daniil, to our podcast today.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. I'm thrilled to have a talk with you today. And for all of you who are here with us, by the way, for the first time, my name is Oksana Krykun and I'm the host of this podcast. So I will be the person who is asking constantly questions to our guests. So Daniil, just want to present you a bit. You are the CEO of Beholder, and let's a bit more about the product itself and about the problem it solves. Tell us more about the problem and how you solve this problem.
Yeah, that's a great question, Oksana. Thank you so much. So all our viewers who are watching this and we communicate through our laptops, smartphones, we have our power banks in our pockets. And all of that is actually created out of material. All of that is created out of metals. And if we think about it, to produce only one smartphone, you need to dig about half of the ton of ore, so of material out of the ground. And so it's a first problem. So we have a huge need in our day-to-day tools that we use all the time. And on the other hand, if we want to have a green transition, if we want to have enough batteries, enough storage, we need to have that. And the problem that these both needs are actually in conflict right now. And the conflict is in the idea that, before 2030, we're going to have about 12 trillion shortage between what we have and what we need. So between supply and demand in minerals. With that in mind, we started thinking how we can help in that, how we can change the status quo, because if we just continue as it is, it will be not enough material. Of course, it will be recycling of batteries and upselling, all of that, but it's still not enough. So our problem is quite simple. We need to produce more materials, more minerals in the end of the day. I mean, if we're talking, for example, about metals, about copper, the production has to be doubled. It was never done in history of humankind. So it's a huge challenge. And with that in mind, we have started to bring in AI and more data to exploration. Because if you look at the life cycle of a mine, most of the time of a mine, which it takes this life cycle, is usually 12 years. About 8 to 10 years of it is just exploration, because it's really hard. It's time intensive. It's uncertain. People put a lot of capital there, and there's a lot of politics inside companies involved, politics inside countries involved. So we decided to shorten this period of time, at least to 2 years instead of 10. And with that, we will save a lot of money to companies who want to do exploration, and we will help to actually put more minerals and more material in the market, which actually will ease this problem between supply and demand that we have right now. So, what our viewers have to understand about the problem, right now we are moving really fast to a catastrophe, to a huge problem in which we will not have enough material. And our solution is to bring more data and more knowledge and more AI towards actually finding new deposits and helping humanity in a green transition. So that's basically, the problem and the solution in short.
Got it. And you just outlined that there is a 10-year of the exploration of these resources right now. Yep. And you want to shorten it up to 2 years. So with the help of what? How do you do this? And which part of the whole exploration process do you make shorter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to understand the technology, we use the metaphor, and the metaphor, you can choose whatever you like. It's rather the lasagna or layered cake. So we basically absorb about 52 layers of data. It comes from satellites, from ground sensors. Some data is provided by our clients. And basically we layer on top of each other. And basically our AI then goes through it and do a prediction. So if you think about how it's done right now, geologists would, underline the map or unveil the map on their table, see the map, and then try to pinpoint locations in which they believe there were geological predictions million years ago that actually form some kind of a mineral. We can talk about metal, or we can talk about heat flow for geothermal. It really doesn't matter. So geologists trying to, I have a geological degree, one of our teachers said that, geology is like solving a really cold case in terms of a crime. There is no evidence, there's nothing there already, but you have to understand what happened there just by understanding, something which was, discoveries were done by others. So it's really, really cold case. It's a case, which was done like million years ago. And geology, that's why it takes so much time. You have to put a lot of data in basically hands of geologists. And then geologists will try to understand what exactly to do with that. So we help them by already pre-collecting data, by working with it really hard. So, a lot of people ask, so where do you get data? A lot of data is publicly available. But the problem is not the amount of it. The problem is quality and how to train AI on it. Because if you train, for example, your kid on really bad books, I think you'll end up with, kid being a not really good person. You're giving, for example, bad example to a kid. The same applied to AI. If you train AI on bad material, then AI will actually do really horrible outputs for you, really not connected to reality. So we work with data, we work with annotation, and we actually prepare it in a such way that AI can, in the end of the day, do predictions. And as drawing to your question, basically we lower amount of output which is needed from geologists, so they don't need to go on the ground on the starting phases. They need afterwards, but right on the start we don't need that. We can scan huge areas globally, so which is a big problem for them. Usually they use old school technologies like helicopters or planes. They fly above it. We can use it basically almost in any part of the world. So with that in mind, we help them to do decisions, because in the end of the day, geologists the head of geology or the head of exploration will do the decision. They will sign the contract, saying that we should go there. So it's a human in the end of the day, but we're helping this human to do a much more informed decision than they used to have before. So that's basically how we lower the time of exploration. And we lower time for them, because one really short thing I have to explain, usually countries issue licenses for that. And there's two different types of licenses. One type of license is exploration one, and the second one is extraction one. And usually they take some time to go for both. But without technology, for example, they can skip exploration and, for example, start already acquired license for extraction. Or they can do much faster paperwork to applying for both licenses with our knowledge, and not to waste time, going for places where there's nothing. So they can make more strategic and more concentrated decisions in the end of the day.
Got it. So to me, sounds like you are digitizing the part of the process a geologist needs to have in order to explorate some mine, and you are shortening it up with the help of the data you're giving, actually the interpretation of this data. Am I correct here?
Yes, and we also bring something new and more to that. So some geologists, for example, are not using the gravitational anomalies or magnetic anomalies, and we actually already incorporate them inside of our model. So sometimes, they may be skeptical towards it, but because model is already one build-up product, basically, we actually give them much more than they would anticipate on using their own. Some people believe that geology is really strict kind of a science, where it's yes or no, but it's actually not. It's more like different schools of thought inside. Some believe in one thing, some believe in others, and it's always changing and always evolving. While we, with our geological department, we're bringing the newest ideas in geology, basically. So we are not only helping them do whatever they are doing, yes, but we're also bringing something new to the table. So we're helping them do even a better decision they would do without using our technology. So in essence, that's it.
Let's talk a bit about the clients and about the users. So like the buyers and the user side. So who, if you can, of course, name those companies. If no, just tell us, give us a hint who they are. Like, who are the companies who are buying your solution, as well as who are the users on the company side? Because I hear that those potentially are geologists, but probably the others are as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that the names will give our users a lot. I would just say that there's two types of clients, basically. We discovered the second one pretty randomly, but I will go into that. It's really interesting story. Well, the first one is quite obvious, right? It's the huge corporations. You can look on them, on their capitalization. They're the multi-billion huge companies. We have some of the clients from them, and what they do, they just scan huge area. They buy up in chunks, like, for example, full regions of a country, for example. We scan it, they pay us fee based on the amount of land scanned, and off they go. We just give them the prediction, and whatever they do with it is their basically inner decision. We are not influenced in any way, and basically they are just doing a strategic decision. So it's the first business model. It's a B2B based on a fee model. So they're paying for some amount of data acquired, and then they go. Well, the second one was pretty surprising to us. We started selling. We tried to sell our services to a smaller mining companies because there are a lot. Market is basically fragmented. There's small group of huge companies, and a huge amount of smaller companies. So it's a kind of in between, right? There's almost no middleman. And we started to working with the smaller one, and we haven't received any big traction, to be honest. I mean, they said, yeah, technology is interesting, but they skipped us, or maybe let's return back after some time. And then when understood they're really low on capital. So there's not enough money for them basically to pay for our services. With that in mind, we have delivered them, we have actually developed, and right now we have 3 projects like that in Africa, in which we provide our services in kind. So for example, we don't charge them money for that. Of course, we count the amount that we spend, but we don't charge money for that. But we take equity in mines. So we're taking part of their pie, basically, of their project. Wow. And then when they become more bankable, they become more mature, we can either sell it or we can keep it. So the value of our company grows as they grow. So basically, the whole idea, we have this, 2 legs in 2 income streams. One, we acquire and we work, and we have a sales force to work with big, huge clients who are paying, us amount for getting huge areas. And there's a wonderful opportunity, there's a multi-billion market for that. And in the same time, we're taking advantage of a growing need in material because we're taking equity parts in already existing market in which we are sure. So in future, for example, if you would, when we show that it's working, and for example, we successfully develop several projects, we basically become a kind of a quality stamp. So, if your project, if you want to start the mine somewhere in Ukraine, for example, and you use our services and we stamp it, we believe in you, and we took equity in your project, that means that it is a real deal. So we double validate ourselves. From one side, we use our technology, and from second part, we actually take equity in that. Regarding how liquid it is, so how fast we can sell, it's pretty liquid, because whenever a company is listed on a stock exchange, it happens pretty fast. It's not really long. It's like about maybe 2 years. When they have all the documents in order, they can go, for example, Toronto Stock Exchange, or in Australia, some Australian stock exchanges. When they're listed, we can sell our shares immediately, on the price which is there. So with that in mind, it's pretty liquid on one hand, and on the second hand, it actually allows us to balance our sheets. For example, if we, something happened and we don't have a lot of clients coming from a corporate sector, or, they are not interested in buying big chunks, we sell some equity parts and we still have cash on hands to develop our project. So this is basically the balance we have right now. And as I said, we have 3 projects in Africa like that one of them, which I can disclose, in Tanzania, a really beautiful place. And with bigger corporations, we usually scan the area. It's almost all the time is NDA, and we just give them the data, what we have discovered. So that's basically 2 models.
Wow, it sounds amazing, actually, this business model you have, because partially you are a venture firm, because you're kind of investing and you have the skin in the game. And in the long term, you might have a really great reputational benefits because, as you said, that these are pre-chosen mines where you just co-invested, and then you might have this expertise for the other clients. And that's amazing. And let's talk in this kind of topic about the competition, because I see that your business model is interesting, and you have a really great value prop for your customers. But what about the competitors in this area?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's a joke when you ask a startup and they say there is no competition in the market. Well, they did research really badly. There's always competition almost on any market. in our case, market is only emerging, so there's not a lot. It's not, there's a huge potential, and there's a lot of companies who are trying to crack the technology. So the question is, there's huge need, but technology behind it is super hard to develop. So, it's not even a question, is it needed? Yes, it's needed. The question, does technology really work? But answering that, there's one huge competitor called Cobalt Metals. It's a wonderful team. We actually met with them on many expos. We talked with some of the people who developed geological physics for them. Amazing, wonderful alumni and people from mining industry, and they're valued about 2 billion right now. So it's a really huge company, huge startup. Their recent round was about, I think, $500 million dollars venture round. Yeah, pretty big. But the main difference between us and them, they do not sell data to anyone. So they discovered, when they started long time before, and they discovered that they actually cannot. They wasn't, in my opinion, they weren't really successful, selling it to customers. So they decided they're going to develop mines themselves. So they, we own like some portion of a project. They scan the area and they own 100% of a project. So the reason why they are so expensive and the reason why they're so huge is because they already acquired a lot of licenses globally. And that's a good idea if you, have experience, wonderful. But in my opinion, the biggest bottleneck for them, they're trying to build mining company outside of a startup, which was never done before. So, they started as a startup, as a discovery startup, and right now they are building mining company out. That's why they raised so much capital. So they want to hire
on their own.
people.
They want to go into
Yes.
industry itself. Okay.
Yes. So they already have assets. They already have discovered some amount of mines. And right now they actually raising capital as a startup, but for actually, working with mines to do the exploration. And this is hard because we are competing, with them and some other competitors, but they're going to compete with the really heavy lifters, and these heavy lifters been in the industry for a really long time. So this is a challenge for them. And the difference between us in a business model, they don't sell data to anyone. We sell data to third parties. We help in mining companies. They want to become a mining company. So that's basically the difference between us. We look at technologically wise, we actually consider ourselves strong number 2 and capital wise as well. I mean, we have raised some amount, already pretty decent amount till that day. And I think we're strong number 2 if we talk about competitors, and there are the smaller teams like Mineral AI and some part of Lunastone who are doing that, and there's Earth AI and others. So there's the smaller companies, but all of them down, in our opinion, actually lower on us technologically and lower on us capital-wise. So we kind of this, second startup on a planet who are doing that. But even if you don't consider our main competitor as actually selling, because they're not selling data to other third parties, we're kind of a number 1 right now. So with that said, the industry is occurring. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, as I said on the start, the $12 trillion problem actually requires much more bigger companies than us in our competitor, So we actually hope that the more people will come to this problem and, more interesting solution will occur. There's a huge amount of improvements that needed to be done in mining industry. And we really hope to see more startups going into sphere because it's not enough, It's so that's, just finalizing the Cobalt Metals is someone we really admire and we, try to learn from them. And the other companies we're trying to help to actually build up their technology to actually, serve the needs because the market is actually too big. There's a famous metaphor of this, blue ocean. We're like really small fishes here, and there's like 5 fishes in the whole ocean. So it's maybe good for business, but for actually solving the problem is really bad.
Hopefully you will grow into a huge fish and probably will give birth to even more fishes who will solve this problem and will be in the sea. Thank you for sharing all of that because it sounds really inspiring. I mean, like about the market, about the trends, and about how it's growing. And I love talking about the team and people who are making the startup because, to my opinion, and from what I saw from the previous podcast, the people are making the product. So it's not like vice versa. So who stands behind the team? Who are the co-founders right now? And how did you meet? And, tell us the story about that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's not only about the teams, even what we've seen from VCs and, what our viewers who want to build the company should know that people invest in people, and
Mhm.
connection is important. Informal connection is important as well, because in the end of the day, the question is, do you have enough energy and potential in you as a team to actually fulfill what you're talking about? Because venture capital they actually get used to high risk, but they don't want to risk like 99% that you fail with only 1% success. And one of the things how they can lower this uncertainty is look you in the eye, talk to you privately, understand what's going on. How do you present your product? How do you speak about it? Are you passionate about it? So yeah, for all what who is watching, being a good person, being well connected is super important. I think it's the most important part that should be, other than being a great specialist in whatever you do and whatever you're trying to build. But yeah, I mean, the whole team, all the founders, we met when we were doing other startup. It was doing remote sensing for agriculture back in the day, and the genius behind the whole technology and our CEO. Basically, we were building this. We're trying to pivot into Ukraine with this remote sensing for agriculture, but we were kind of successful and not successful at the same time. And somewhere in 2020, I mean, during the pandemic, one of our clients said, so, I was thinking to flip, basically sell my farm. There was farm, it was a huge landowner, to sell it. And do you guys can see if there are any minerals beneath the earth, with your
Wow.
magic satellites, And we said, we are not sure. Let us consult with our tech team. And then the remote sensing team said, well, the hypothesis already developed and was developed even during Soviet time era, to develop something for hydrocarbons, for oil and gas. We were started researching, is it anything done for metals? And we actually started with that. So in 2021, we have started the company focusing on researching resources. But it started as a need from a client. Then we really rigorously researched, is it possible from scientific point of view? And it is possible. And then after we, were concrete in that, we actually, we stopped the previous one, we put it on pause, and we decided to go here because the challenge here is much more interesting and the market is less concentrated, because in remote sensing, there are huge players like some Ukrainian ones like EOS, or there's One Soil, really concentrated, really wonderfully developed market. So we decided to go in something which is interesting for us from scientific point of view. And then it appeared that it's not only say from scientific point of view interesting, it's also interesting from a business point of view, because there's not enough supply of really interesting solutions for the companies like that. And as you said, the market is growing. It is. If we're talking about already a market of critical minerals right now, which is minerals needed for green transition, it actually doubled for every 2 or 3 years. Right now, it's something about it's hard to estimate, but it's about 400 billion already, and it's going to double next 2 to 3 years, because the value of a material goes up and because the need of it actually goes up. I mean, it's quite obvious, right? If you need all electric cars, or you need all the solar panels, or you need enough battery storage to balance the whole electrical grid, well, in the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. So yeah, just to sum up how we met, we were doing other startup before that, so we're building pretty successfully. But then we decided to shift in something much more dynamic and much more interesting than just doing or replicating what other companies are doing, and we started building our technology from scratch.
That's amazing that you had your previous experience and you already were bullet tested, and then you went into another entrepreneurship journey. And about like existing startup, about the Beholder. So just to clarify, how many scientists do you have right now in terms, what is the percentage from all of the employees who are working right now? Because I think that the question usually which our listeners have, who are to develop the scientific-based startup or heavy capital-based startup, they are like, okay, who should be the team? And for example, when we were talking to other teams, there are a lot of scientists for some teams, there are less scientists, etc. So how it works for you?
Yeah, in our company, we have two main departments. So first one is geological department. Their job is to understand, basically create the hypothesis and annotation to train AI. So, yeah, there's a lot of jokes how AI misunderstand, our basic stuff, for example, how it misunderstand how to use, bicycles because it was trained in the wrong way or something like that. The same can be applied here. If we train AI on not scientifically proven hypothesis, and then we will have outcome which doesn't reflect. And if it doesn't reflect in reality, where our clients will lose a lot of money and we will lose our credibility. So we're really, really careful in what we do in that regard. Therefore, Anastasia is our wonderful head of geological department, and we're bringing new people to the team right now. So we're expanding it. And the other one, big one, is basically AI department. Alexander, PhD as well. He's the head of AI department, and he's developing all the parts there. So basically, they work together. And our CTO has a PhD degree. Our CEO, Andrew, has 2 PhD degrees. So basically, we are a group of people who is trying to find scientists. It's not a requirement. For example, we have other wonderful specialists doesn't hold, PhD degree, like backend developers or like cloud optimizers. It's completely fine. But we always trying to look for really smart and bright people. That's one of the things that we're looking for. Sometimes, I was talking with other, as you said, scientifically heavy startups, and sometimes they complain that scientists are slow or they are not business oriented, or not understanding, the clients or something. It's not our case. We try to find young, bright scientists who are fed up with academia and who wants to do something great for themselves and who want to feel themselves, constrained and locked in this situation. So, yeah. Sum up your answer. I don't have a percentage wise how many PhD holders we have, but a lot. And all key people have PhD. Myself, I don't have yet PhD, but I have master degree in geology. All others have at least master degree. So that's
scientist is not only the person who holds a PhD. Scientist is like the person who is working with that. So you are already the scientist. So yeah. And how many people, just to have the bottom line, do you have in your team right now, like in the whole company?
Well, yeah, it's a tough question. We're scaling right now really fast. But as for this day, we have 15 people, and we're going to expand to about 25, 30 people. So that's the amount.
So you're pretty small right now, but still you're scaling fast. So dear listeners, if you're listening and you want to join the next challenge and don't want to make your own business, please, you have an opportunity. Yeah,
for sure.
And one of the last questions I have for you, let's talk about the Green Deal and rebuilding Ukraine. Because when we were preparing to this podcast, we were talking that your technology is far beyond the mining itself. And tell us more about that, because there is obviously the trend for everything which is green right now, for the resources to build a greener future in the future. Sorry for this. But how do you see and how do you envision it, how you are into this trend and how you help Ukraine to rebuild itself?
Yeah, so the good and the bad thing about EU, if something is decided, it's really hard to overrule it. So sometimes it can be some decisions which are not really good. But in my opinion, Green Deal is a pretty balanced and a good decision in understanding that the whole idea of a Green Deal is actually bring EU as a head and a top lead in the whole green transition. If we think about what is a green transition really is, if you think about the whole history of humankind, what we were doing, we were digging something out of the ground or cutting trees and burning it. So we started with wood, then we pivoted into coal, and then we moved into oil and gas. But in the end of the day, the whole economy was based on us burning something down and actually producing energy out of it. This time, we actually moving from that, which was done like thousands of years, actually tons and tens of thousands of years for us as a human species, to economy in which we're going to storage the energy instead of actually producing it out of burning something. So we will use solar, for example, or wind, or wave energy, or geothermal, or nuclear, whatever. But in the end of the day, the electricity will be the main energy source, and we need to source it and we need to produce it. And for sourcing, our solution is important because you need a lot of batteries and you need huge amount of it. And actually for transporting as well. So if our wires are made of metals as well, metals are everywhere around us. So this challenge is really huge. And the whole Green Deal relies on building the economy, which will be basically material intensive, not fuel intensive, but material intensive. With that said, the whole idea, we can really, talk which way should we decide or which way of producing electricity and energy is the best one. Everyone will have their own opinion. If we talk to wind entrepreneurs, they will say the wind is the best one. There will be solar, there will be, geothermal or wave energy, a lot of it. But in the end of the day, there's the consensus that the energy has to be produced from renewables, or at least produced with a minimum harm to environment, to lower impact what human beings are doing to the environment, doing to the nature in the end of the day. Ukraine in that part, we have a special role because there's a huge consensus, and there's my huge hope that it will not break, that Ukraine will be part of the EU family. It will be full member someday. And with that in mind, our whole energy infrastructure is destroyed because of a Russian full-scale invasion, and EU will be doing rebuild of it. So we basically, there's one challenge for Ukraine, which is rebuilding our power grid in a way that's going to be more sustainable and suitable. For example, breaking it into smaller power grids and, balancing with more solar and wind energy and whatever. And there's a bigger challenge for whole EU to do the same on a macro level. So we as a company can help Ukraine to actually discover more minerals. And so one of the things that actually EU really lacks, if you look at the pyramids and where all the lithium or other parts which is needed to produce batteries or even wind and solar batteries comes from, most of critical minerals come out from China. And this is a really big problem because the whole supply chain is reliant on them. And as we've seen with full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, this chain can be broken really fast and the shock can be really high. So if EU is really serious, and I know it is because we have some conversations with MPs and members of Parliament of the European Union and people who work in the Commission, they really need to outsource it and find new ways to produce this material, to dig it out of the ground, process it, and then actually have it inside of the EU, have it to produce more and cheaper electric cars. With that, I will just finish, my answer. With that said, Ukraine already has the biggest amount of discovered lithium on European continent. We already have the biggest lithium deposits here. We have the biggest uranium deposits here because, you don't like, for example, nuclear energy, but by European Commission, it is available. It will not be shut down. France has won this geopolitical fight, and nuclear energy will be part of the whole system. So our technology in rebuilding of Ukraine, we want mining sector to be ecologically friendly, not to destroy a lot of unneeded places. As you rightfully mentioned, we help with our discovery because we lower uncertainty and we lower the amount of unneeded digging. So we can do it much, eco-friendly way than it still could be done otherwise. Discovery, and everything else. Secondly, we can help to understand what exactly do we have here in our wonderful country, because all the last geological assessments were done a long time ago. And recently, there was not a lot capital put in that regard. And if you think, that mining industry is outdated or old or not producing enough jobs, well, you're wrong. There's a lot of capital going in. If you look, for example, in such developed countries as Australia, for example, it's all built on mining industry. It's built on actually excavating a lot of it. So just to finalize my question, Green Deal will create huge demand for minerals. We can help with that in terms of, for example, partner countries, like, for example, there's huge lithium deposits in Serbia, there's something in Turkey as well, and EU trying to work with them, the same as with Africa. We can build trust there, because it's really problematic for them to understand what's going on. And if we scan and if we say there's something and our technology is trusted, therefore we can help to investments to flow in. And in Ukrainian case, we believe that there is a much more potential than we already know. And this potential is much better for the EU and for us because we will receive investment, we will receive job opportunities, we will receive resources. And at the end of the day, we maybe become the Australia of Europe, in which way that we're a huge country with huge amount of land mass that exports a lot, but still we have developed economy, we have AI, we have IT sector, we have developed AI as well. So just to finish, my thought, I would say that the Green Deal is important for us because it creates demands and it creates tools for us to use it to actually build up the new sector of economy here, which is new mining, because usually right now mining is mainly coal and steel or iron ore. We envision to have more copper, have more uranium, have more lithium to be exported as well.
Sounds like a really great vision for Ukraine, actually. And I'm pleased to hear that. And hopefully you can start implementing this vision in the shortest time. Of course, it depends not only of us, but hopefully everything will be great, like sooner than later. And like one of the very last questions, you are the participant of Seeds of Bravery. I mean, like Beholder. And if you can share a tiny bit about that. So what are your expectations and how is it going for you? And which benefits you have already or you don't have, etc. So please share your thoughts on this program.
Yeah, I first of all I have to say that the name of the program is really smart because we're basically planting here a lot of seeds. Some companies has lost possibility of developing product because of a full-scale invasion. Some of them was relocated. So this idea of allocating non-equity investment, which is good because it doesn't dilute already existing investors, because investors would love to see more money than they invested. So there's a lot of power dynamic fight there. So basically for a startup, it's a good way to receive the funding, but not only funding. I was really surprised. And when we applied, we were applying for, some investment and, some grant and that's it. But we have received so much more. I mean, the whole ecosystem, which is built around Seeds of Bravery and hopefully will be developed afterwards. So I really wish, and I'm saying it sincerely, I believe that Seeds of Bravery has to raise more in the future years and allocate more to help more companies. And I really, really sincerely believe so because the seed has to grow and you have to support it. We have received not only money, we have received connections, we have received coverage, we have received educational programs, we have received a possibility to be connected to other businesses, and be connected to other possible clients in Europe and globally. We have received a lot of other benefits, such as, putting, for example, Seeds of Bravery logo on our materials, which, creates some positive reactions as well. Yes, you're right. That's right. So I believe that's much more than that. So, whatever who is watching, and if you feel for some weird reason considering applying or not applying, you should definitely do so. Because Seeds of Bravery is much more than just receiving, some amount of money. And I know wonderful startups that, we're friends with that already was at your podcast, but there's a huge startups like Heiko, for example, who are participants of Seeds of Bravery as well. So without all that said, the money is not the whole part. But about the money, which is really important in my opinion, because we are a deep tech startup, you can allocate them to something that your investors wouldn't support, not because they don't want to, but because they want you to prioritize something, building customer support or building a sales team. But sometimes in a deep tech project, you just need another push to really go deeper in technology, because this push to go deeper in technology will actually give you opportunity to be much better than your competitors. And it's our case. So we used basically grants from Seeds of Bravery to reinvest in our scientific team to develop something, that our investors would support, but just additional funding that helps our scientists not to get pushed constantly by, the deadlines, or you have to do that. They're more into mode of researching. They're more into mode of this playful discovery, which is really important if we're talking about hard technology. We're not building some B2C product, which is, the main metric is, ARR or MRR. We're building something much harder. because our challenge is much harder than just building, some B2C solution. No offense to everyone who is doing that. But as I said, the funding, which you can allocate really flexibly. So of course, there are limitations on that. 100% they have to be, and there are reporting involved. But it's really good push for scientific discovery in our case. Secondly, it's educational part. So education is really important. And I think especially for early stage startups, it's super cool that you are having basically an exploration program, but without the needs to give up equity, and you can meet wonderful mentors. You can work with them through the program. And thirdly, the connection and being part of the ecosystem, which is wonderful. I mean, to see familiar faces, to help others to apply, bring your fellow startuppers to it. So this is important as well. With all that said, I mean, if there's still someone watching, and there's still deadline for you available, and you are yet not applied, and you have a startup, please do, because I believe it's one of the best opportunities available for Ukrainian startups right now.
Thank you for this feedback, Daniil. And when I was listening to you, I was like, oh, I'm so proud of my job because I'm the part of this ecosystem too. That's what makes me wake up every morning and to understand that I'm helping Ukrainian startups and products to grow as well with my tiny input, but still. So yeah, kudos to all Seeds of Bravery team too from my side. And my last question to you is, a lot of potential startuppers or existing startuppers are listening to us. Those might be scientists with MA, for example, not only a PhD, who are listening, who want to start their own business. So which piece of advice you would give them to work on their business idea or to pursue their way and journey as a startupper?
That's a good question. The first one that I want to say, the CEO of NVIDIA was asked, what is your biggest advice to a younger self, right? What would you do wrong or differently? And he said, just don't start it. Don't work. Don't start the NVIDIA in any
it's
case,
kind of
right?
controversial for all of us who are listening to that.
It was. Yeah, but in my opinion, he was right in a way that is super hard. In a way that is super hard to, build in a business. So the first thing that anyone who wants to pivot in or go into building a startup has to understand there is a lot of work connected to it. And if you still feel inside you the burn that you are not fit into corporate culture, or you want to become, or you want to change the world, to be honest, it's such a cliche phrase, but if you really feel that and you have you're passionate about some problem and you're passionate about your solution, you definitely should try. I believe that, we have a pretty, as a human being, statistically speaking, if we don't consider the war, our generation, me and you, Oksana, and younger people who are listening to us, we will live much longer than our parents and our grandparents. So we have a huge amount of time in front of us. So in my opinion, you should just try. I mean, if you try and fail, that's amazing. I believe that in our European culture, we have this stigma towards failure. And we have this stigma towards, people who tried and failed, they look on them kind of, like from top to bottom. And I believe this is not right. I much love more American approach in which, oh my God, you were so brave that you tried it, that you really tried it. So yeah, and with that said, my advice would be, first, understand it's going to be hard. It will not be easy. But secondly, if you have this itch in yourself, you have this kind of, uneasiness with the status quo, and you see this opportunity that you cannot even sleep at night, you should definitely try. And the short advice, I mean, as we talked with you, building network is important. I see a lot of cool ideas, which will not succeed because people who are behind them doesn't have this connection, and it's a pity because I believe ideas are amazing. So building network is important. Finding good co-founders and good team is important. I think that's basically my three outputs would be: understand what you're going into, and if it's okay for you, start, because there will be no second chance. There's a famous quote, I think it's a Chinese proverb, that the best day to start was yesterday, but the second best day is today. So, use this second best day, which is today, to start doing something, and just find the wonderful people who have this idea and burn inside their hearts and heads, who want to, follow their passion, basically. So that would be my feedback.
Wow, so motivating in the end. So I think that this podcast will be just before the new year. So everybody who will listen to that will have a goal for the next year, start my own business if they didn't start yet. So Daniil, thank you so much for your time today. It was my pleasure talking to you, and it was really inspiring. And I hope more and more such great businesses from Ukraine will conquer the niches around the world, because what I believe in and why I'm in the Seeds of Bravery as well, because I believe that Ukrainian companies like yours, like others, will build successful Ukraine in the long term, because you are developing the high marginal products. You are giving a lot of space to new professionals to develop, and that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you all, dear listeners. It was a Seeds of Bravery podcast. Stay with us on all of the podcast platforms, and see you later.